And I just really love the program there. They did a ton of research, really trying to be proactive about slowing down the prevention of kidney disease through lifestyle and pharmaceutical interventions, a combination of them both. And I think they use a lot of the proceeds from the pharmaceutical to help fund a lot of the lifestyle stuff. And I was just really intrigued about preventative medicine from a young age because my mom was so sick. So I had this group, this really cool opportunity.
So, okay, here is my first question to you, Megan, that I'm so curious. I know that you were working in Dr. Fung's clinic and that is a large part of how you all started learning about fasting. But did you know about fasting prior to working in that clinic? Like what was your door in to understanding fasting?
No, actually, so I started in the nephrology clinic. So Jason's a nephrologist. My background's in nephrology, so kidney disease. I actually started there when I was 15. Jason had been working with the group for about 5 minutes at that point. And as a young nephrologist on the team, he had to do some research projects. And I was a student that was working with him on those research projects as part of my summer job. And I just really loved the program there. They did a ton of research, really trying to be proactive about slowing down the prevention of kidney disease through lifestyle and pharmaceutical interventions, a combination of them both. And I think they use a lot of the proceeds from the pharmaceutical to help fund a lot of the lifestyle stuff. And I was just really intrigued about preventative medicine from a young age because my mom was so sick. So I had this group, this really cool opportunity. Jason was a nice guy. It was a large nephrology group. We're actually, our oral group is one of the largest medical research departments of any kind in North America in nephrology.
Amazing.
So I just love the whole, let's try to stop disease. Let's try to make people better. Let's stop trying to slap medications onto the list. And I wasn't seeing that anywhere else in medicine. So I just hung out there. I love the team. All of the doctors had the same perspective. Let's help save these people. And, you get to know dialysis patients. They come in 4 to 6 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week. And, for 3 to 5 years, typically on average, and sometimes longer. I mean, some of these patients that I met at 15 are still kicking around the dialysis unit today, and they literally watched me grow up. So you can't,
I bet.
Yeah, you can't help form relationships. So, kind of in my mid 20s, I was just heartbroken because it seemed like all of the interventions we were doing were making individuals sick. So Jason, myself, and the nephrology team there, we had this prospective observational study going where we were looking at FGF23, it's a growth hormone, as a better predictor of kidney function decline than creatinine, which we typically use to help estimate kidney function. And the idea is if, we can detect it earlier, we can prevent it, or we can try to prevent it or slow down the progression of it. So we enrolled 2,800 people with very, very mild kidney dysfunction. And it was a 3-year study, but we're a year in and patients were just rapidly declining. Patients were dying from type 2 diabetes. That was the root cause of why they eventually passed. And it got to a point halfway through the study where we had to do another enrollment on board to bring back up our sample size because we were losing so many patients who were really quite healthy, who we would expect to live or not be on dialysis for another decade or longer. And it was just crazy just to see how all of these lifestyle recommendations that they were getting and their diabetic care was just nosediving them down the toilet. And I started to panic about my own health at that point because I thought to myself, okay, we're doing these interventions in them, but they're already very diseased. They're already quite old. So I'm young. Let me do it now. Let me get ahead of this curve so I don't get diabetes, heart disease like the rest of my family. But that did me no good because within a year, I had the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes and I had gained a ton of weight. So around the same
just out of curiosity, how old were you at that time?
So I got this news for my 27th birthday.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
don't book annual
Wow.
physicals around your birthday.
Because you may get a diagnosis.
Yeah, it was brutal. But at the same time, too, I was feeling so brokenhearted for these patients. I was kind of at a loss. I just, when I was 15 and I walked into the dialysis unit, we had a handful of patients. By the time I was 27, we had centers upon centers just in our group. We were dialyzing thousands of people around the clock, 24/7. We were airlifting them to places like Ottawa from Toronto, which is a 5-hour drive. Um, it was just wild, to see diabetes become such an epidemic. And, Jason was seeing it too from a different lens than I was. And he had some personal discussions. A friend of his, I believe, she started fasting for spiritual reasons following a divorce. And she had these health benefits from it. And this really sort of spiked Jason's interest to do a bit of a dive into this. Most people don't realize it, that Toronto's the most culturally diverse city in the entire world. And Jason and I worked in the most niche area. So it wasn't unusual to have someone who practiced different religions, like Muslims in Ramadan, or we would have different patients who would, always fast on Fridays, or would fast on Mondays and Fridays. Like, these were very common things. So many, over 50% of the population of Toronto is immigrated there. So, these are people that, until they acclimate to the gluttonous culture that Canada in general has become, they were still bringing these practices, or older generations reverting back to them or not giving them up. So we were aware that fasting was a huge part of every major religion. Fasting didn't faze me. My best friend was Hindu growing up. She fasted on Fridays when she was old enough. But in my culture, like, it was a real foreign thing. Like, McDonald's was Monday, pizza was Tuesday, Wednesday was Chinese food. That those were our religious practices. So Jason said, to me when I was telling him about my diabetes diagnosis, this fasting. And at first, I had heard rumors around the clinic that he was talking about this, but it just seemed too easy. And then later on that same day, I heard him giving a talk to some of his patients about fasting, and I decided to sit in and listen to it. Sure as heck beat sitting in traffic on the way home. And everything just kind of clicked. And I went through about 1,000 different stages of emotions that evening.
I think that's really good for people to hear, though, because it would be easy to look at you like a fasting the fasting expert that you are, and think it was easy. So, like, what were those 1,000 emotions? Just because I think people don't recognize that they're not alone in that emotional journey.
So there's this can't be true. It can't be wrong. We cannot live in this huge conspiracy theorist, population. Like, how could the government of Canada, we're Canadians, we're supposed to be so nice. How could they let this be? How could they be lying to us about it? So I went, down some, dark paths. Anger at my parents. They're brilliant people. I know they're in law and finance, but why couldn't they figure this out? It's just so much anger at my professors. Are they brainwashed? Or are they lying to me? Or a mix of both? And anger at myself. Like, I sat through years of school. And you're just, like, as a student, you're just so busy trying to stay up to date, on top of the grades, 500 extracurricular activities, a job to finance it all. And you're doing all of these things. And, sometimes things don't make sense, but you've got this, you're paying thousands of dollars for this expert, this world leading expert, to tell you, hey, this is the fact. And you just have to sometimes memorize the fact, because you don't always have time to fully understand everything in those moments, and kind of kicking myself, for not forcing it. And then,
by the way, I had the same feeling when I learned about autophagy and Dr. Osumi's work. I was like, wait a second, this is so simple.
Yeah.
If this guy just won the Nobel Prize for this concept of autophagy, why doesn't the world know about it? And to the conspiracy theory idea, do you feel like it's just there's no financial incentive for people to fast?
There's definitely none. And now that I've I've pivoted in my career, hung up my nephrology hat in 2015, right before my wedding, I had to make a call, what am I going to do? Because I was trying to do both at the same time, still maintain my nephrology, giving people the wrong advice, but that's what was funded, versus, doing what was right and serving people. And in Canada, that's not funded. It's not public health. It's public health care, but it doesn't, fall under.
But wouldn't it save Canada a lot of money if everybody fasted and were able and started overturning type 2 diabetes? This is, I look at Kaiser by us and I think, oh my gosh, Kaiser needs to know, because ultimately, and they are already talking about fasting. Mm-hmm. They're one of the rare few hospitals because they're trying to save money and save lives.
Yeah. It's, I think there's a certain branch in Canada of sort of government that did reach out to us at one point because their particular sector was too obese and too diabetic. And they said, fasting is less politics than food. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm like fourth generation Torontonian, Canadian, and just sort of the lenses, the fog clearing, and like now I live in the United States, and
you live near me. We're still gonna go do lunch here soon. Yeah, I promise.
We should. Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, and I've worked with clients in the U.S. My husband's American. My in-laws, I'm very close with them. They're in the U.S. You hear, but to physically live it and just sort of see what's brought about in the last couple of years too. It is totally a business. And then there's certain larger organizations. We've got some insurance pilots and stuff going that are quite interesting, and it's great. People are looking to bring fasting, and then there's some other pathways where it's like, well, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't really cost the insurance company anything in the end, whether you're sick or you're not sick. And it's just there's a lot of politics that goes into disease and wellness.
I think that's really hard for people to grasp, because we want to walk into our doctor's office and feel like there's only one person in that room that matters, and that's me, mm-hmm. and my doctor is going to give me the best advice. But when you've got, financial incentives for doctors to prescribe medications, and the information they're receiving is primarily largely from pharmaceutical companies, it really taints your view. And I really have to give Jason a lot of credit for being willing to step out of that and say, hey, there's a different way to do this. And what kind of feedback did you guys see as you were starting to fast and seeing results? Is insurance companies, were they mad? How did that all roll out?
We started in Canada, and it's public health care, which is interesting. But we definitely got blowback. So I had done a month of it, and my A1C dropped down to 6, and I had lost some weight, but I still looked very sick, and my numbers weren't off the charts impressive, and it was only a month worth of data, so no one cared. Amazing. So Jason and I went to our team, and we're so excited, and let's do this. And Jason had been talking to the higher powers that be in the nephrology space. And no, you guys are nuts. You're mental. We're not even going to listen to you. But then as I started to come back to life, and as I started having, months worth of data, it just getting better and better, and people seeing me not waste away. And then there was some holiday weight loss pool going on in the nephrology department, and I found out that certain people were betting that I would win, and I would just conquer the challenge. And there's the sustainability part afterwards, and I think I made a few people extra pocket change.
There was a pool. They had an office pool on you. That's hysterical.
Yeah, no, it was really a wild place. And then as a joke, someone for making them a little bit richer gave me a McDonald's gift card, which was really ridiculous. But on that note,
what kind of fast length were you doing? Because I know people are going to ask that. Like, what did she do? What was her fasting length to lose
So
all
I
that weight?
really kind of changed it up a lot on the way. My first fast, I'm like, I'm young, I'm motivated, I'm not too sick. I'm going to do 7 days, and that did not go over well.
Just pure water.
Just pure water. I felt like totally depleted. It was not good. Didn't know what I was doing. Coming off of an awful diet.